Today, we are going to get into the science of why some of our houseplants look amazing and others, well, not so much. We're going to pull back the curtain on plant care and give you the real tools you need to turn your space into a green oasis. Let's jump right in.
You've been there, right? You find the perfect plant at the store, you bring it home, you swear you're doing everything right, and then a few weeks later, it's just sad. It's probably the #1 frustration for anyone who's ever tried to keep a plant alive. But what if I told you that success has absolutely nothing to do with luck or some kind of magic touch?
Yep, you heard that right. The whole idea of a green thumb is basically a myth. Keeping plants happy isn't some innate gift, it's just about understanding a pretty simple system. You need to start thinking of your plant like a little business, and it has an energy budget. If you can balance the books, that plant is going to thrive.
So let's dive into that core idea, because honestly, everything, and I mean everything, from how much you water to what kind of soil you use, it all comes back to how that plant is managing its energy. And it all kicks off with one thing: light.
This is the big idea right here. Light is your plant's paycheck. That's its income. Through photosynthesis, it turns that light into sugar, which is its food, its cash on hand. Then, on the other side of the ledger, you've got all its expenses, things like pushing out new leaves, growing roots, and even just moving water through its system. A happy, healthy plant is just one that has a balanced budget.
And here's what that looks like in the real world. Think about a cactus. It's built for the desert, so its business model is based on high income. It needs tons of direct sunlight. But it's also incredibly frugal. Its expenses are super low because it barely uses any water. Now, a fern is the total opposite. It lives on the shady forest floor, so its light income is much, much lower. But its expenses are high. It needs to stay constantly moist. The secret to caring for both is just balancing their unique budgets.
Okay, so let's get practical. We're going to focus on light and water, because in the plant's budget, these are the biggest line items for income and expenses. And let's be honest, they're where we all tend to mess up the most.
So how do we track our plant's income? We have to stop guessing. You know those confusing labels like bright indirect light? What does that even mean? Well, we can use a real objective measurement called a foot candle. It's just a unit that tells you exactly how much light is hitting a specific spot. No more guesswork.
And this chart breaks down what those numbers actually mean inside your home. See that first bar? Anything under 250 foot candles is considered low light. We're talking about a dark corner, far from a window. Only the toughest plants can handle that. Most of your classic leafy houseplants, they need that middle range, between 250 and 1,000. That's usually what you get a few feet away from a bright window. And your sun worshippers, like cacti and succulents, they need over 1,000-foot candles, which pretty much means right up against a sunny south-facing window. And hey, you can get free light meter apps on your phone to measure this stuff yourself.
All right, on to the biggest expense, water. And with it comes the #1 question in all of plant care. Is it overwatered or is it underwatered? The tricky part is that a wilting, yellowing plant could be either one, but the fix is totally different.
Think of this matrix as your ultimate cheat sheet. You have to be a detective and look at all the clues. If it's overwatered, the soil will be soggy, maybe even smell a little funky, and the leaves will be soft and limp. If it's underwatered, the soil will be bone dry, pulling away from the sides of the pot, and the leaves will feel crispy. But the real tiebreaker? It's the soil. If the plant looks sad and the soil is wet, that's your sign of root rot. The roots are literally drowning and can't drink anymore. So here is a ridiculously simple, absolutely foolproof way to know when to water. Stop just touching the topsoil. The top dries out first. Grab a plain wooden chopstick or a barbecue skewer. Shove it all the way down to the bottom of the pot, leave it for a second, and pull it out. If it comes out clean and dry, it's time for a drink. If it comes out with damp soil stuck to it, there's still plenty of moisture down where the roots are. Just wait. It's really that easy.
All right, we've got the budget handled. Light in, water out. Now let's talk about building the right infrastructure. A plant's health truly starts underground, in its pot and the soil mix it lives in. This is the foundation for the entire system. First off, the stuff you buy in a bag at the store is not just dirt. It's actually a soilless mix, and it's engineered to do a few key things. Provide structure, but more importantly, provide aeration and drainage. You got things like perlite and orchid bark in there, specifically to create little air pockets so the roots can breathe. Then you have something like cocoa coir or peat moss to hold on to just the right amount of water.
And what's cool is you can even mix your own custom blends. This here is a killer recipe for tropical plants like monsteras, philodendrons, you name it. In the wild, these guys grow in really loose, chunky stuff on the forest floor, so they love an airy mix.
See how it's mostly orchid bark and pumice? That's all for aeration. Then the cocoa coir holds a bit of moisture, and the worm castings add a touch of natural fertilizer.
Now, when it's time to repot, you got to follow the rules. And rule number 1, the most important one, is about the size of the new pot. I know it's tempting to give your plant a giant new mansion to grow into, but don't do it. A pot that's too big holds a ton of extra soil that stays wet forever, and that's just an open invitation for root rot. You only want to go up by 1 or 2 inches in diameter. That's it. Okay, with our foundation of light, water, and soil totally solid, we can level up and talk about the finer points of plant care. This is about feeding your plants the right way and playing defense against common pests. It's all about keeping that fine-tuned system running smoothly. When it comes to fertilizer, I want you to remember this little mantra: weekly, weekly. It's that simple. Instead of hitting your plant with a powerful, full-strength dose once a month, which can be really shocking to its system, you're going to give it a very diluted or weak dose every single week when it's actively growing. Now, that weekly strategy works best with liquid fertilizers because you have total control over the dose. The downside is you have to remember to do it often. The other option is slow-release fertilizers, which are kind of set it and forget it. But they don't work as well in those super chunky, airy soil mixes we just talked about, because the water just rushes past them.
Okay, listen up, because this is the single most important rule of fertilizing. It is non-negotiable. Never, ever, ever pour fertilizer onto dry soil. Fertilizer is basically a mix of salts. If you put that on dry roots, it will literally pull the water out of them and cause a nasty chemical burn. You have to water the plant normally first, then come back with your diluted fertilizer. Always.
All right, let's do some quick-fire pest control. If you look closely at your plant and see these super fine, delicate little webs, especially between the leaves and the stem, you've got spider mites. You might also see tiny little dots all over the leaves. Get that plant away from your others immediately and start treating it.
And what about these little fuzzy white things? They look almost like tiny bits of cotton, and they love to hide out in the little nooks and crannies where a leaf meets the stem. Those are mealybugs. A cotton swab dipped in rubbing alcohol will take them right off. For both of these, catching them early is everything.
So let's bring it all together. If you walk away with just one thing today, I want it to be this. Forget about having a green thumb. That's not a thing. Instead, start thinking like an accountant for your plants. It all comes down to that energy budget. You have to balance the income, the light, with the expenses, which is primarily water. If you can get that balance right, I promise you, you have just solved 90% of all houseplant problems. Everything we just talked about gives you the power to actually make a difference for your plants, like right now. So what's it going to be? Are you going to grab a chopstick and check the soil before you water next? Maybe download one of those light meter apps and see what the income really looks like in your sunniest window? Whatever it is, you now have the science on your side to help your plants do more than just survive. You can help them truly thrive.